About a year ago, I was sitting almost at the same spot, well, to be precise, just 2 meters down there on the couch. And a friend of mine, who is also responsible for the existence of Boosted Boris, sent me a message and said, "Hey, look at this guy." And that was Casey Neistat. And he said, "You should do something similar, or at least do daily vlogging on the Nürburgring as yourself." Well, a year later, Casey stopped doing daily vlogs and I started releasing mine. About a week ago, or even less than a week ago, he released sort of reaction video to PewDiePie's video about forced positivity, and that it's more or less a common thing with YouTubers that you have a forced positivity. You try to talk about the positive things in your life, and not even YouTube. I mean, all the social media, most of all, you try to show the people that you have a nice life without complaining. However, I personally think that if you decide to do vlogging, vlogging should be real, and real things also include bad things. And this is what I'm going to talk today about. As you may know, the reason why the whole vlog is only started released now. The most important disclaimer is I don't want you to feel sorry for me, because you will understand that I'm not the main victim in this whole thing, but I do owe you explanation, and that requires telling you a lot of truthful, nasty things. And I do truly understand that if someone came to me and told me this story, and if I wouldn't have witnessed this in the first place, I would never ever have believed this. Another important thing that you need to understand is the aspect that I haven't addressed before is my role at Ring Garage. I'm not the owner. I'm mostly just a freelance guy who's supposed to do marketing there, but ended up doing pretty much everything, as you can see in the vlogs and as most of you guys know by now. This will explain to you why the things ended up like they are and why I couldn't do anything about them. Okay, let's get started. And the only best possible way of telling you this story is, in my personal opinion, by telling it to you, the complete story. So let's start from the beginning, which is in this case the early 2015, when Ring Garage firstly opened up its doors for the customers and I joined the team. Actually, I joined the team by the end of 2014, but the main business activity started early 2015. And you need to understand that when you run a rental business with a fleet of 20 or more cars, you definitely need your own workshop. And this is something Ring Garage hadn't had covered. A decision was made to outsource those activities. First, we were bringing the cars to someone else, and then suddenly one of the guys who was working at one of the teams that we used to do all the maintenance for our cars came to us and said, "Hey, I want to start something for my own, and I would like to rent the place at your place and do a workshop. So in this way I can have my business and you will get your car serviced." Well, basically, this is probably the best outcome for everyone. Now, from now on, I will be referring to this guy as Mr. 709, because that's the nickname he got from us, well, me and my friends and everyone else who was involved in this whole issue. And the problem is, you cannot really talk bad about people or the companies, so I will not be mentioning his name. I'll just calling him 709. And if you're asking where this name came from, one of his lies was that his fastest lap on the Nürburgring was with a Porsche GT3 doing a lap of 709. You must understand that the factory record is 725. There is no possible way that some random guy did a 15 seconds faster lap. So since then, we decided to call him 709. Another thing, I will be referring to the company, which is Speedworks. The thing with that, Speedworks officially does not exist. It has never ever existed. It had a different juridical name, but for the public it was operating under the name of Speedworks. So if I'm blaming this company, I am not doing anything bad in my point of view, because the company is non-existent. So non-existent company cannot blame me for bad-mouthing them. And even if they do, I would love to see them in court and to testify against them on all the other things that you will be hearing soon from me. So let's get started. Where was I? Yes, so the beginning of the beginning. So this guy came to us and asked to start a workshop. And well, it took quite a while, but he was still hanging around. And at some point, I started noticing some things that were just seemed strange to me. Like, for example, out of nothing, he was starting to talk about his private car collection, and one of those cars involved, for example, BMW 507. Or even worse, well, not worse, if you have such a car, it's amazing, but the car in question was McLaren F1. And I'm like, if you have a McLaren F1, which is worth around 15 million euros, you are not going to be a simple mechanic who is willing to start a business of his own, of course, but you'll be into something else. So there is something wrong with that. The next thing was, one of the terms of our cooperation would be that Ring Garage would provide him a lift. We did so, and he said, okay, I will get all of the rest of the equipment within 2 weeks. Well, as a matter of fact, those 2 weeks became not 2 months, but over half a year. And his excuse all the time was that he was saying, the most of the equipment has arrived at the supplier, but it's not completely arrived at the supplier, and if the supplier would have to send the equipment to me every single time, I would need to pay 500 euros every single time. Now, I must say that, first of all, this is a freaking bullshit, okay? Never ever something like that would occur. And even if that would be the case in the most capitalist country ever, system ever, then someone who owns a 15 million euro super collector car, McLaren F1, and all the other cars would definitely not look at some stupid 500 euros. Another remarkable thing occurred. One time he came to us and asked if he could borrow our E92 M3. To which we said, of course, yes, since you are a future business partner, you can have it. The problem was, however, that we did not know that he was intended to using this car for taxi labs activities. Now, a small disclaimer here. You need to have a taxi license to perform ring taxi labs at the Nürburgring. In the opposite case, if you get caught, your car will be banned forever. Your license plate will be registered, every marshal will get notified, and they will say, the car is not allowed to enter the track. And you will get additional fine because all the other companies pay 50,000 euros or around that amount for the 3 years of having exclusive license. Well, as you may have guessed by now, he did a taxi lab and he got caught. To which we received a letter from Nürburgring asking us to explain this whole situation, and of course we knew nothing about it. But the most remarkable thing was the message that he sent to me. Carsten Schumacher called me and he was pissed. Well, for you guys who don't know, Carsten Schumacher is the former CEO of Nürburgring. And think about it. This guy, the CEO of the largest and most important and probably busiest track in the world, has nothing to do the whole day, and on his schedule he's thinking, someone did illegal taxi lab. Let me call the guy and tell him how bad he is. So just another piece of lies. Just final 2 things I want to tell you about this whole lying circle, and they also involve 2 of our cars. One of our cars is the Cayman that you by now should be familiar with from all the vlogs and all the times that the car gets crashed. He took it more than once. He took it about, in total he did over 500 kilometers with it. But at one particular case in 2015, when we had a track day and our race car drivers were driving this car, he told them, hey, can I have this car because I need to change the suspension settings? Well, I'm sorry, all the time, for those who are not involved in the racing scene, the suspension settings are being adjusted for the driver. And this is why it is theoretically better to have 3 drivers on a 24-hour endurance race instead of 5 or 6, which is possible because you need to find the middle point of all the settings for the car. But let's forget about that. Let's move back to the Cayman. So he just fiddled with the suspension, and the first lap, the tire exploded. Whether he was a shady driver or a shady suspension engineer, well, this is something I would let to you. The second car, which pisses me off by now still, our Porsche 991 GT3. And you must know that also with other companies, rental companies, it's the case that sometimes some cars are privately owned. And in this case, it was also the case. Some friend of ours brought us the 991 GT3 and he said you can use it for the rental business. Now, Mr. 709 became very good friend with the owner of the 991, and he came up with the bullshit story that he's going to improve his car by providing him a Manthey setup. Now, again, a small disclaimer, if you do not know what Manthey is a racing team, but most importantly, by now it has more or less the same status as AMG has with Mercedes. It's the official race/tuning company of the Porsche, and as a matter of fact, Porsche has a share within this company. So he took the GT3 and he was promising the 991 Mantai racing setup. And then he came back with those things that you see by now on this picture, telling that those are data logging magnets kind of system to see whether the car is performing as it is supposed to perform, and that they changed the rear wheel steering, because if you may or may not know, the rear wheels of the Porsche GT3 or the Turbo S or all the current Carrera, the 991 Mark II, are steering as well. And what they did, according to him, is the changing of the direction it would steer. So for example, that if the wheels at the lower speeds usually steer in the opposite direction, this time with the official Mantai setup by Mr. 709, they would steer in the same direction as the front wheels. At some point we decided to take off the tape and find out what the data logging magnets were. And this whole thing was exposed on Bridge to Gantry, the most famous block of the whole Nürburgring. And they appear to be snip-tech. And snip-tech is some sort of pieces of metal that you put on your wheel, and there is the whole story behind it that they claim that because of the added weight and inertia and whatsoever, the car is performing faster than it is doing without. Now, you must understand that, in my opinion, Porsche is the most respectable brand in the motorsport in the world. If you look at the motorsport history, and even as of today, they spend definitely billions and billions of euros on research and development in the motorsports and all the race cars. You wouldn't think that if someone would come up with the idea of having this piece of metal attached to your wheel, which would improve the whole dynamics of the vehicle, that they would not implement it in their design. Come on, this is such bullshit. To end this whole bullet point of the Porsche GT3, you must know that the car had 2,000 kilometers when he first got it, and he decided to do this whole Mantai official racing setup, and the car came back with over 5,000 kilometers. So to go to Mantai, which is about, 9 kilometers from Ring Garage, it took him 3,000 kilometers and over a period of 3 months. Yeah, crazy, right? Well, this resulted in having 3 times needed to change the engine. Thank God for the warranty, but this also resulted for the owner telling, hey, you cannot take care of my car, I'm not leaving it at Ring Garage anymore. So yeah, we lost a very exclusive, interesting car. But let's move on to the next point. By now you definitely understand that I was already like, what the hell is happening? And I had like huge alarm bells and red alarm going off in my head. Alert, alert, abandon ship, do not have this guy in your company. So of course I started to do some extra research. I approached some of his former partners and they told me amazing stories of him being insolvent. Meaning that, well, he made a company bankrupt in the past, actually about 3 of them, and this meant that he is not allowed to run a company in his life for the next about 7 years or whichever term he has left to serve, and he also needs to pay about 700 euros a month to stay out of the jail. Moreover, he has some bad debt collectors chasing his ass. And I was like, whoa, the last thing I want to have is having some angry Eastern European guy, yeah, working on stereotypes here, guys, coming to Ring Garage and trashing the whole place because Mr. 709, who is definitely a pathological liar, said that Ring Garage is his place, and that would be trashed. In the meantime, he also sent me a message asking what I would be doing in the winter, and I said pretty much, well, basically nothing, enjoying my holiday because I'm working 24 hours a day during my season at Ring Garage, so I'd like to enjoy winter holiday. And he asked if I could help him, which was basically a job offer, something you need to remember for the things that are going to come up for the 2016 story. The year came to an end, and the end of that was the last VLN race at which some Argentinian drivers, which were the customers of Mr. 709, in which they participated with our Cayman S race car, unfortunately which they crashed. But soon after that, some interesting Facebook post happened where Mr. 709 is flying to Argentina with a private jet and whatnot, and after that he came back bragging that Lopez, WTCC champion, is going to drive for Ring Garage and his future company. And I was like, yeah, probably one of your bullshit. But another funny thing that shortly after he started buying the whole equipment, And actually, wait, didn't the supplier have the equipment over half a year ago, but he wasn't sending it all the time to him? I would almost think that Mr. 709 went to Argentina and asked the drivers to pay up front for the whole season of 24-hour races, had about €500,000 or maybe more, and then decided to finally start to invest in his next, actually in his company, because remember, he's not allowed to have any company. Yeah, that was probably the case. At this point, we are already in 2016, the year at which the vlogs have been shot. And one of the first things that I heard while still being in Russia, some friend of mine, whose name will not be disclosed, called me and I said, "Hey, what happened?" I'm like, "What do you mean, what happened? You are not working for Ingarage anymore?" I'm like, whoa, slow down. What do you mean? Some rumor, or actually some guy, I wonder who it was spreading the rumors that La Lanterna, the restaurant that we always go to, as you may know by now from the vlogs, saying that he has bought Ring Garage, and most importantly, that Misha has been fired. And I'm like, this is interesting. Let me contact my employer, Ring Garage. So I called them and asked them, "Hey, what's up? Is there something you want to tell me?" And they were like, "No, what?" "Well, do I still work for you guys? And do you still own the place?" And of course, their reaction was like, "What do you mean?" "Ah, you know what? Never mind. I know already what's up." So fast forward to March, the month at which I moved back to Nürburgring because the season was about to start. The first thing, I organized a meeting with the owner and the director of Ring Garage and asked him, actually, no, it's not the right word to ask. I begged him to not have this guy 709 involved in the company, to not have him near the company, because although I'm not the owner and I only work there as a freelancer, I have helped to build the whole image, the whole brand of the whole company for the last 2 years. And the last thing I would like to see is having some pathological liar, some piece of shit, destroy it just like that. And his reply was, "What's the worst thing that can happen?" And after coming up with all the arguments and all the things that I told you, they still said, "Well, as long as he's paying the bills, nothing is gonna happen. Everything's fine." And then the season has started. And one of the things on the agenda was to make a promotional video for the CT meet that I was going to organize. And for that I needed to transport the Toyota GT86, the Car Throttle CT86, to the Drift Park Nürburgring, which I asked to do Mr. 709. To which he had replied, "No problem, I have red plates." A red plates means that you can transport unregistered car in Germany if you need it, well, from workshop to workshop and so on. Or I have a trailer. Guess what? He didn't have the red plates and he didn't have a trailer when the push came to shove and I really needed to. And then the most remarkable thing actually happened, probably which has started this whole clash between me and him. So months earlier I had booked a racing license course, something you can also see in the vlog, and the intention was to do that with the E39. And my certificate by now says that I still completed the racing license course with BMW E39 528 of Ring Garage. But why was I driving with the E36? Thank you. We will tell you the story behind it. Well, I will explain you. In 2015, some customer has misshifted the E39, so the engine was blown up, and Mr. 709 was responsible for, well, the engine swap, the bad one for a good one. So a week before this racing license course, I asked him, "Will you manage to do that? Because moreover, I would love to cover this whole heart transplantation of E39, so you would benefit from it." To which he said, "Yeah, of course, the car will be ready, no worries." And the license course was, I believe, on Saturday or Sunday, so I just decided to verify. On Wednesday, while still being in Holland, I sent him a message asking, "Hey, what about E39? How's she doing?" Guess what he had replied? "I am mad at you. You didn't help me with my opening party, so I'm not going to fix the car." I'm like, dude, well, I think you look like you're 30 plus, but you act like 3 plus, like a freaking baby. For those who are wondering what he's referring to, he had an opening party at which, well, he invited, according to his previous statements, over 200 people, but in the end only 30 showed up. And coincidentally, Ray, the instructor guy from my video and a good friend of mine, also came up to discuss the instruction relationship between him providing the instructor services to the customers of Ring Garage. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. 709, that it happened on the territory of Ring Garage, in the Ring Garage office, while you had your opening party, and that you didn't invite him. Not really something, I didn't invite him to your party. But let's move on. So after that I was like, what the hell is going to happen? And after that, even more personal attacks towards me came along from him. For example, when I posted a picture that I was shooting the very first Boosted Boris Capitalism Weekly episode, he sent me an angry picture with a message, I rent the whole building, I want nobody in it. Well, I'm sorry, you rent only a part of the building, and I happen to work there, so I have to be there, so there's a slight problem with that. The thing is, apparently he was hiding something. And what can he possibly hide? He doesn't have any like top secret technologies like most race team have, for example the early mentioned Manti Racing. Well, probably he wants to hide that he was having money and the debt collectors would be chasing after him. So for example, here's a fragment where my friend Daniel, the photographer, was getting kicked out because he was not allowed to photograph our race car of Ring Garage that was getting built. Yeah, thanks a lot. You tried to make some pictures of the BMW M3 engine swap, but unfortunately...
Not allowed.
Not allowed. Because something very secret is happening there. Probably. And stay tuned, I'm going to explain something more today about that. Okay, have a safe trip back home. Moreover, sticking to this whole incompetence kind of thing, that he doesn't have the secret technology and what's what, I want to emphasize that this guy, he ruined a lot of cars, and the whole incompetence started to show off during the worst tragedy of my life vlog, where actually, well, have a look for yourself what I filmed but didn't put in the vlog in the first place. I'll tell the customer that. Okay, I'll see you then at the track. Yeah, cool. Diana?
Yeah.
I've just decided to create a series about Speedworks / Mr. 709 fuck-ups. And once Mr. 709 will be exposed, all of the fuck-ups he made will be released in one video. So the first one that I'm going to document, because there have been a lot more fuck-ups, but the current one is really messy because the Cayman, as you saw, had some problems with coolant. Well, it just suddenly got overheated. So we hope that there is some excess air in the coolant system, and that's why you cannot pump the coolant and the car gets too hot. The thing is why we are so mad, me in particular, because we have a customer who came in from other country here, paid for track day, paid for accommodation and so on, because he wanted to drive the Cayman. The Cayman, on the other hand, was supposed to be ready 2 weeks ago because we had another customer back then who, fortunately or unfortunately, had cancelled. So there is no fucking excuse, Mr. to fuck up this and blame it on, yeah, well, the car was standing over winter and yeah, and you haven't fucking checked the car, which you were supposed to do 2 weeks ago. And the 2 weeks ago would have been the same fucking problem. But hey, yeah, you can always blame it on someone else. So this is first fuck up, and hopefully the car will be ready in 5 minutes and I can give it to the customer. If not, I have to compensate him, probably with a GT3, and I'll give it to him for the same price, because yeah, it's our fault, but yeah, I cannot say, hey, it's his fault, like you're doing all the time, it's someone else's fault. So yeah, I'll take the blame, but once it comes out, everyone will know how good guy you are. Yes, the cars were not ready, and moreover, like for example E46, which customer has purchased, was not ready, and we asked him months in advance, week in advance, is the car going to be ready, because the customer is going to fly all the way from Russia to drive this car. And he said yes, and even the day before customer arrived, he assured us that the car was going to be ready. For fuck's sake, if you're a professional businessman and you know that you're not going to meet a deadline month in advance or even day in advance, you're gonna say, hey guys, sorry, this and this has happened, not gonna happen. So we would, in our turn, would contact the customer, the owner of the car, and said, sorry, something has happened, our fault, but you need to prepare for it. If you not want to come over, cancel your flight, we're gonna refund you, and if so, you're gonna get another car. And he did get another car. But instead of fixing the car, he even made it worse. Because have a look for yourself, because he has hired some professional sticker guys who made the decals for this car. Another incompetent things happened. You may know by now if you've watched all the vlogs that we had some issue with GT86. The thing is, I was talking all the time about cars needing different engine. Guess what? It turned out they only needed a gasket change. Because guess what? After everything this happened, and finally the team of Ring Garage started to question his ability and not question my claims about him, we decided to bring the so-called destroyed engines to professional dealer of Toyota, at which he said, it's only a gasket. There's nothing wrong with the complete engine. You can just replace gasket, which costs you 500 euros instead of 5,000 euros for the whole engine. Jesus freaking Christ. And actually this has ruined more or less my relationship with speed hunters, because like the customer who was promised to get a drive in his own car, I was promising speed hunters and car throttle to drive a car on the day of a CT meet, but in the end cars only arrived at the end of the day. And there are a lot of other personal offenses were happening in between. For example, he was taking the stickers off from the race cars of Boosted Boris or Comrades, to which he had no right. And guess what? He was saying that they were simply falling off.
Have fun. Just a moment. Need something small. Just a bit. Could you hold it for me, please? Just realized there are stickers from Boosted Boris missing because someone took them off, and the car has to be safe and blasted with stickers. That's one. And that makes it two.
Well, I'm sorry, you can see by now that even after a crash into barrier with over 250 kilometers an hour, the stickers will not fall off.
Gone. This, obviously, the fender, the front rim is just destroyed.
Great quality sticker dump. I love you guys. And a lot of other things that he was telling behind my back to Ring Garage owners and setting them against me, making sure that I would get kicked out of Ring Garage and whatsoever not, saying also things like that I was sabotaging his cars, that the car was not performing well at VLN, his Cayman. Actually his Cayman, nice remark, the Cayman was not even owned by him, but by someone else. Yeah, he was telling that I was sabotaging his cars. Yeah, I have nothing else to do than to sabotage your car. I cannot even change the goddamn wheel. No, I'm not referring to the A45 crash. But you will see later when I'm trying to change the wheels of the E36. By now, you should probably know that during this whole fucking clash, I understood that either I would be leaving Ring Garage, or there is something bad gonna happen if the whole situation is going to continue like that. And probably by now you guessed that the latter has happened. Well, the outcome of this whole thing was that his Argentinian drivers has rented our Cayman and 991 race car and didn't pay up until the last minute. And he assured us, well, actually he assured on the personnel of Ring Garage, because then again my only responsibility is marketing. I cannot decide not giving him the cars. He assured everyone that we, or actually Ring Garage, would be getting the payment. Well, you may have guessed that none of that has happened. Moreover, as you can see by now, the cars, both cars, have been crashed. Cayman was written off completely, and well, usually the customer is signing the contract that he is liable for all the damages, or at least he has the ability to come up with a third-party insurance to insure the car, and then it will be covered. But in this case, Mr. 709 he fabricated a fake contract which stated that the cars were fully insured, so the driver signed the contract with Speedworks, and then when they crashed it, they said, hey, we have the contract which we signed that it says the cars are insured. It's not our responsibility. Well, at this point, Mr. 709 was owning Ring Garage over hundred thousands of euros of direct damage. and some indirect damage because of the cars that were broken, not maintained, and Ring Garage was losing profit. So the very next day after the 24-hour race, they started packing up things, taking all their equipment and just loading up the truck and moving. And when we asked his representative, we asked, "Are you moving?" "No. Why would you think so?" "Why would we think so?" "Because you're packing up your equipment, and unlike all the other previous victims of your pathological lies, we're not stupid, so be fair with us." And after an hour of asking them if they are moving, and just to confirm the goddamn thing, just be a man and say like, "Yeah, we don't like it here anymore, let's separate." You know what the reason was? "Yeah, I lost my keys to my house yesterday, and I'm pretty certain that Misha has stolen them so he would break into my house because I'm afraid of him." Okay, your whole fantasy before of owning McLaren F1 and all the other bullshit that I spent like by now, what, half an hour explaining to you was pretty interesting, but this? Seriously? But yeah, in the end, long story short, they moved out. Ring Garage lost almost close to €250,000 of profit or incurred of damages. And they were telling a lot of bullshit to all the other people after that about us. Like, for example, that Ring Garage was his company, but angry Russian mafia snitched it from him. And, for example, to the mechanics, that we weren't paying his invoices, and that's why he cannot pay his mechanics their loan. And that's why all the mechanics were looking with angry face at us and almost ready to kill us. And we were wondering what the hell's happening. We used to say hello yesterday and talking about family and friends, and what's the problem now? Well, that was the freaking problem. I would be pissed as well if my oh so dear, wonderful, fluffy employer is not paying me loan because some angry Russians are not paying his invoices. Well, if you want to know, we did pay his invoice. Well, yeah. The bottom line is three things. First of all, I hope by now you understand that I was fearing for this moment, and that was the reason why I did not release those vlogs, because maybe they wouldn't make any sense, or maybe they would look me stupid for trusting this idiot. And after long thinking, I decided if I want to do that, I have to be honest with you guys. And if it involves telling you this whole this, and if it involves not having forced positivity and telling you about bad things, and a lot of upcoming vlogs are going to be about dealing with those whole situation caused by him and dealing with bad things, well, it should be like that then. Then it is the way to do it. It's the only way to do it. Number two, if you realize that someone is bullshitting you hardcore, like it is in this case, make sure to close your life for this person, run away, and make sure not to let them enter your life in any way possible, because as you can see, he's caused a lot of damage to us and all the other companies that trusted him after he has left Ring Garage. And number three, you know what? Let's end this vlog or explanation or Q&A on a positive note. Now that you know that such an incompetent piece of shit can get so much money together and, well, screw over lots of companies, there is definitely nothing impossible in this world. So, if you think that you cannot do something, remember this story.